I think the stance of many people regarding the environmental issues for a very long time now has been, well, before we focus on the environment, we actually have to fix our country to have money to give to the environment. But at the same time, some people who are very optimistic about investing into the environment, the Paris Treaty, for example, they will say that, well, environment is an extremely urgent issue, and if we don't solve it now, we basically die. What do you say to those people?
I'm not quite sure I think it's that dramatic. I Our climate will change. That's happened for how many thousands of years. But unless we're going to regulate somehow countries like China, countries like India, most of the Middle East,
That's a good point.
we're not going to get anywhere. So why are we taxing to death our own people if we can't even police the major contributors and the major polluters of the world? But yet we're going to make working people pay an extra, is it £12 something a day for ULEZ or whatever it is? Awful. Why are we doing that?
I think the statistics now is UK can contribute as much as 1% to the global
Yeah. Yeah.
climate change. So, of course, the massive polluters like China, like India, they're not doing their bit. And as long as they're not doing their bit, we need to find a way to persuade them to somehow accomplish their part of the equation. And then we, of course, will focus on ours.
Yeah. And the other way we don't, I completely despise the idea of covering our green belt and our farms and our fields in solar panels when we could be putting them on top of car parks. We could be to put them on top of buildings and hotels and on top of supermarkets, on top of houses. But instead, we're going to just cover our fields and our countryside, our beautiful historic countryside, in solar panels. We've descended into madness in our country. I don't understand where we're going. There's no vision. We just talked about the West and its lack of direction, but we're struggling to find our way here at home. So, well, again, it's the environment is a very, very touchy subject for a lot of people, but as long as we find a common sort of purpose and common direction of where we want to take it, that's when we can start to act on it.
Now, regarding the leadership of Nigel Farage as a whole, this situation with Rupert has demonstrated that his leadership can vary, and many people, uh, let's say, take that in different ways. And it's many people say that it will be extremely difficult to predict the way he will act in future towards his party. What do you think his leadership is like? Do you think he is a skilled leader, or as many of the left wing people say now, that he is a vulnerable leader trying to silence many of the MPs working with him in case they become more popular than him, in case they voice their concerns about the party?
Is Nigel Farage a skilled leader? When he took over as leader at Reform UK, I think we were on about 30,000 members. We're now at 200, we're over 220,000 members. Labour on 309,000. He's increased our membership through members of working class backgrounds. People of all ethnic walks of life, all religions, all values. It's not about good leadership is about bringing everyone along for the ride. It's not about small little spats with MPs and colleagues and things like that. It's about making sure that we're inspiring the next generation of people to believe in politics. Most people that you speak to don't vote because they don't know who to vote for because of the lack of leadership. And people are starting to turn a corner now. They believe in the vision and the direction that we've got. That's happened under Nigel Farage's leadership. Regardless of what anyone's opinions on Brexit was, it was something that he championed for over 2 decades. Finally got it through, and then the Conservatives of the day, the Brexiteers, David Davis, Boris Johnson, they sabotaged it, and it wasn't the same reality that he wanted to reflect. And so, yeah, I think he is a fantastic leader. He's inspired a country that there can be hope, that we can be optimistic, and we have got a bright future. And that's what good leadership looks like, in my opinion.
So you think Brexit was predominantly a good thing for the country?
I didn't say that. I said that it was something that I think had massive potential. I think that a lot of people were let down. If you talk to most people now, they voted for Brexit and then they didn't get the reality. Most people voted for Brexit because they wanted stronger control of our borders. That did not happen. That was a direct lie. Not on the behalf of the Brexiteers. That was a direct lie on behalf of the government of the day. Boris Johnson, David Davis, Michael Gove, the people that had their fingers on the levers of power. They said that they were going to take control over these issues. They said they're going to get Brexit done. They've got this lukewarm deal through, and unfortunately, they failed to act on it. So, I think it was an idea that had massive potential, but the reality of it, unfortunately, was squandered by the government of the day.
I think we're clear on the ideological reasons why people would vote for reform nowadays. Let's move away to a bit of economical reasons. What do you think are the main economic solutions the Reform Party is offering to people uh, in comparison to what has been offered by the Conservatives, by the Labour, and where is the improvement for the country?
Well, I mean, we support the peace agreement that President Trump is trying to facilitate. We do believe in shortening, not shortening, just stopping being obsessed with war, internationally. We can save so much money by reinvesting it in the infrastructure and military that we have in this country. We can create so many new jobs in technology, innovation, with the military and things like that, as well as science and other forms of innovation. This idea about cutting taxes, it is a touchy subject because how you go about doing it is very worrying for me. At the moment, this idea of just tax spend and just borrow it, to tell the Bank of England to print it, it's such an insidious phenomena that we did that during COVID, where Rishi Sunak printed £500 billion UK pounds and just printed it into the economy and expected nothing to happen. So the economy is something that we have to be very, very careful with, because Steve Baker often talks about, the moment you debase economy and you carry on debasing the currency, it causes so many problems that most people, including myself, don't properly understand. And I think that causes a wider economic cloud that I think we've got to try and avoid. But no, I think people want to be optimistic. We're providing an economic outlook, on cutting taxes, scrapping net zero, staying away from £100 million bat sheds. And I think that's what what we want to deliver for working people. And that's not what Labour and the Conservatives are giving us.
Now for some of the viewers from your ward, people who are potentially going to be voting for you as a councillor, what do you have to offer as an individual, not as a party member, but as an individual, for people to be able to say, yes, I'm going to be backing the candidate?
So in my ward of Waterloo, Buckingham Park and Berryfields, we've got one of the best, one of the most incredible residential communities I can ask for. They're innovative, they're entrepreneurs, they're doctors, they're nurses. These people, the people in my ward, work so hard. I work in a pub, for Christ's sake. I see people and I meet people from all walks of life. And when they go to the ballot paper, when they put their tick in the box on the 1st of May, they can look at my records, what we've done. Even I'm not an elected official, but we've introduced something that we're calling midnight drives, where we're driving around at night, going to deprived areas and places that are vulnerable to crime and antisocial behaviour, reporting any suspicious activity directly to 999. So the police.
You have done that.
We do that, yeah. Me and my team, and it's a growing thing. We're working,
Yeah.
we're working with the neighbourhood watch and things like that. But this is delivering on creating a safer community. Now, our current elected officials, they're not doing that. The other candidates aren't doing that. We're getting involved, litter picking and things like that. We go out canvassing every other day. Not even canvassing, just talking about local issues. We're working with the parish council, setting up a people's army, making sure that we're keeping our streets safe, clean, and more prosperous. Who else is doing this? And the answer is nobody. We've got a lot of problems, not just in my ward, but in Buckinghamshire as a whole. We've got Buckinghamshire Council reports that they're on the edge of going bust. And the council tax going up again, and et cetera, et cetera. But I think people can judge me not by the promises of my delivery, but judge me by the delivery of my promises. And that's what we get on the 1st of May.
And that's another important issue I think you've touched right there. with knife crime raising, especially in London. And once again, I'm focusing on London because London is the capital and it's basically on the economic center of the UK as a whole. Uh, what's the way to solve that knife crisis? Is it to put more police on the streets?
There's lots of ways that we can tackle knife crime. We have to start with education, making sure that we've got a good education system that gets people straight out of school into good employment, not lingering about on the streets. We need good clubs, social clubs for kids to go to, making sure they're not just wandering the streets with friends, getting involved with gang and county lines and things like that, making sure that there's places to go for them to socialize, interact, get skills. Policing, making sure there's more police on the streets, and bigger police presence, a more community-based police presence as well. We need a police force that is in touch with their local community, people that, making sure that we know our police officers' faces and they know us. Creating a community feel to a safer society. My campaign, my slogan is a safer and more prosperous society that we can all enjoy together. But if we can't enjoy it together, then what are we fighting for? Why are we sending money to Ukraine to defend democracy when we can't even protect democracy at home? These are the big things that we need to look after our small communities in particularly in areas like Buckinghamshire, where we've got very hardworking, contributing people that aren't being rewarded for it. And that's what people will see, I think, and people are starting to definitely feel that shift.
Well, it's quite interesting you mentioned education there because you yourself have not gone to the university. Do you not feel the value that nowadays university has to offer to people?
Well, I went to university briefly, and I decided that it wasn't for me. I didn't like the lifestyle, and I felt like it was a little bit too much. I didn't feel like I was being taught anything. I was given the reading list before the lecture.
What was the course?
It was law with politics, so it was. I loved law. I love learning about the legislation and the way that the courts are run, and politics as well. It's a very controlled sort of industry. Is university? I don't think it's quite as free as people think it is. And for me, it didn't let me spread my wings in the way that I wanted to. But don't get me wrong, it was how I first got into politics. I met my first MP when I was at university. I went out canvassing for the first time. I went out campaigning for the first time. And it was brilliant in that respect. I met some incredible people. But I think we need to make university, get rid of these Mickey Mouse degrees and make people more, help people get into a proper employment and making sure that we're supporting young people with new opportunities. But yeah, it wasn't for me, put it that way.
So why not stay in the university for the community rather than for the education? Because that's pretty much what many people are doing, staying for the community, people that they meet, possibly MPs, people who are skilled in the areas they would like to study. So most people, I think, nowadays do really go for the community to get the networks that are so important in this world.
But I felt like my community at home needed me more. I could see that the people that were representing my family in my home ward, they weren't doing a good job, and I think that my friends' family at home, I think they needed a representative that represents them. I could have run for Staffordshire Council, where my university was under the Conservatives. I could have run for a seat there, I'm sure. But I wanted to fight the political fight in my home where I live, and that's why I came back.
Well, that's such a positive thing, such a positive point to end the podcast on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And it's been amazing.
Great to be back, and best of luck for the future. Hope it goes well.